Tonight on Discovering, we're off to the races. I head down to the Wisconsin UP border to check out a Snowmobile Radar Run. And we learn to tie a couple more flies with Todd Poyer. So sit back and relax. It's Monday night and it's time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
For many people, snow means snowmobiling. Snowmobiling means trails. Trails need grooming. Grooming costs money. So what better to raise money than to throw a party and charge snowmobilers money to see how fast their sleds go? I headed to Bent's Camp in Land O'Lakes, right on the border of the UP and Wisconsin, for their annual Radar Run.
Come on down to the Radar Run! We're having a great time! Woo!
We are on the Cisco chain, stone's throw away from Michigan, and it's a 14-lake body of water that is excellent in the summertime, but as you see today in the winter, it's a big snowmobile destination. So we're lucky to be able to be on the trail and be what we call the gateway to the UP. It's been going on for 19 years. It started as a real small event that was just helping the club groom to us here at Bent's Camp, and it's grown every year bigger and bigger and bigger. It's excellent for the club, and it really is only possible by all the help and the volunteers that we get from our sponsors and all the volunteer help. It's an open event, it's free for all spectators. If you want to run in the race, it's $10 per run, and that's 100% donated to the club for grooming and gas and maintenance to keep our trails nice in the winter.
We have probably 20 different classes, ATVs, UTVs, mods, stocks, then we got the big guys, they'll do 150, 160 miles an hour down there.
In front of the bar was an ice bar, but beyond that, a 1,000-foot groomed snow track where snowmobiles are put to the test under the radar gun. Call us crazy up here, but we don't let the weather keep us from having a good time. Hundreds of people showed up for the Radar Run despite the sub-zero temps all day.
If you buy a sneaker with us, you get a free consult to the dentist for chipping a tooth.
We've done this event everything from 15, 20 below zero to, we had one year, must have been 50 degrees out. This one's not the coldest we've had, but I wish it was a little bit warmer, that's for sure.
This is a family fun event, and people of all ages had a chance to speed down the track.
He's got a former cerebral palsy, so he has pretty limited use of his hands and feet and stuff, but his grandpa built this adaptive snowmobile for him. So he has a backrest and a safety harness and some training skis, and
You can push the throttle.
he only likes to go wide open, one direction. So, should we practice, Ron Jerome? You want to practice? Okay. So we've got the kill switch wired to the flag, so when he goes underneath, you grab the flag and it kills the sled. Otherwise, there's no stopping. Here we go!
He came last year and he saw some kids go. Oh. And I said, okay, well, if you can learn how to hold down the throttle, you can enter next year. So that's what he worked on all year, holding down the throttle, and he can do it really, really well. So I said, all right, it's -5, but I promised, so you're still gonna do it. This is his thing. Motors, that's what he loves. So if he can participate, like, this is great. This is gonna make his year. Yeah, fun.
Even the spectators got in on the action. I made friends with this crew in a heated UTV.
You want a shot from the end?
Sure, hop in.
After seeing there was a UTV class, well, they decided to go for the trophy. A few times.
30! Woo!
How fast is that?
Don't worry about it. We'll see at the end of the day.
And since they were the only UTV to enter, the trophy was theirs. This radar run brings in sled heads from all over the Midwest. How fast is the last run?
111, and the one before that, 124.
One of my missions was to find a Youper. It wasn't hard.
We're from Amistad, Michigan, about an hour and a half east from here.
Okay.
And it's been nice to see a day that's above -30 degrees. So this -7's real nice for the sleds, making them run good. And we're having a great time. Ben's Camp's always a great time, right? I bought it from an old lady. She liked it. And it's a first year, made in 1969. Sold then. It would have never gone back to the dealership. Still got these recalled handles on there. Grab you by the boot and drag you the rest of the way. She starts really easy if you pull her over, and she has a lot of power, so she ain't gonna turn off when you turn the key. Run an aero shell because it's cheap, and pump gas with water in it because that's the closest you're gonna get to methadone injection with these. So, well, 906 Outdoors, you'll see my old lady in a bikini on this sucker in a little bit.
You heard that right. The only race class that wins money today is the bikini run.
So at 4 o'clock, the brave young women will gear up in their bikinis, and the one that wins the fastest time will win $1,000.
Oh, they're gonna earn their $1,000 today. But I think a couple of them girls are riding 1,000 turbocharged sleds. So they'll be doing maybe 120 miles an hour with their bikinis on.
Nikki McGill of the Pink Ribbon Riders hit the top speed of 102 miles per hour. Did we mention that all the money goes to the Frosty Club for trail grooming?
To keep those trails perfect.
We are tying a dry fly pattern called a stimulator. It's a relatively recent fly pattern that came out probably in the last 10-15 years. It's catching on around here. It's in a tractor, doesn't imitate anything specifically, but it looks lifelike, and that's what it takes to catch trout. I do a variety of colors when I tie this. I find that trout really like the real reflective, real synthetic looking stuff, as long as you're using it in proportion. This is going to help the fly float. As you wrap this around the hook, the barbie will stick up, and that helps hold the fly in the surface tension of the water. This fly has hackle that's used a couple different ways. The back half of the body is going to have hackle that's palmered, which means it's not tied in real tight. And then the front half is going to have a more traditional dry fly hackle. And we start by wrapping the body material a little over halfway for this fly, somewhere between half and 2/3. And we tie that off so we can snip it out of the way. And we palmer our hackle, not spacing the wraps very close to each other, so you can still see the body material inside the barbs. And we tie that off. Get a couple more pieces of hackle to wrap in here. If you are coming up from the back of the body, you tie the tip of the feather in first, and that way as you're wrapping it gets bigger towards the head. And when you're wrapping the head hackles in, you start with the fatter end of the hackle, tie that in place. I think I'm going to use a combination of 2 different colors for this. So I use a little brown. Twist my dubbing body onto the thread. That's making the head. And these are hackle pliers. It makes it easier to finally control the hackle. Take a couple wraps over with the thread to hold it in place, and wrap the other feather in. Normally, a lot of guys would tie in a wing as well. Sometimes for my dry flies I don't use wings. They're seen more as a silhouette from the trout. And I have fished with dry flies that have had the wing broken off, and the fly still works fine. Not that it's a habit to routinely tie them without wings, but I don't think they're 100% necessary, especially on a fly this bushy. People tie flies for many reasons. Most people who tie start because they want to save money. They fly fish. Going out and buying flies, especially when you start, gets expensive as you lose a lot. I have stuck with it because it's an art form, something I enjoy doing, and it's very satisfying catching a fish on something you've created. If I'll sit down in the winter, go through my fly boxes, see what I lost last season, see what I need to tie. So I'm going to tie a streamer now. This is a variation of a traditional fly called a Royal Coachman. I tie it with synthetic materials to give it a little more flash. I find I have better luck using the synthetic materials and traditional materials for this. I am also going to tie it with a bead head. Provides a little extra color. I'm going to use pink since we're coming towards spring and a lot of fish are going to be in spawning. It makes it look like a minnow might be chasing an egg through the water. It also provides a little weight to help get the fly down further. You put the bead on before you start, and at the end of the fly there's a little pocket inside the bead you try to stick your tying materials into to fill that up a little bit. We're tying a wet fly version of today, a little bit shorter hook. Always start with wrapping your thread around the hook to provide a base for the materials to stick to. If you tried putting feathers right on top of that metal hook, they'd just slip and slide, wrap around the hook on you and end up where you don't want them. This is the tip of a duck feather, dyed red. Makes a great tail material for streamers or wet flies. This is a bag of peacock curl. Use 2 or 3 pieces of this when you're tying. And it provides a nice texture. Trout go crazy after it. There are a few nymph patterns out there that are almost nothing but peacock curl. It's so effective when the trout are in that kind of mood. So you grab 3 pieces together, wrap them around the hook, tie them off. For this fly, I'm going to use segmented body. On this size hook, I'm going about equal parts peacock curl and red tinsel. Tinsel is going to be in the middle, and I'll have the peacock curl on either side of it. When I first started tying the variation, all I did was add the metallic body rather than a floss body where the red is. And as synthetic materials have gotten more available, I've started tying the wing with pearlescent, kinky fiber. At this point, when you're tying with a bead head, pull the bead up and try to stick as much of the wing material as you can right down inside of there to fill that hole a little bit. Trim the wing off so it's about as long as the tail is. I'll add a little bit different color here. Sometimes I'll use blue, sometimes I'll use green. They all seem to work on the right day. And when you're tying a streamer or a wet fly, to help give the fly a little more action when it's moving through the water, if you put a couple of wraps right behind the wing so it points up, as you're pulling it against the water, it'll flatten out and kind of have an undulating motion like a minnow swimming through the water. Trim off as many of these little tags as I can. And we'll want to put a little hackle on there. This also provides a little movement through the water as you're bringing the fly in. Just a couple of wraps. It's a little shorter than what a lot of people would traditionally use, but my theory is that it ends about where the gills would on a minnow if I'm using the shorter hackle there. There's a lot of right and wrong ways to tie flies, but what matters is if they catch fish. I'm also going to add a little bit of a head, which is something the traditional fly doesn't have. I'm using a synthetic dubbing material. Got some blue-green flash in it. Got that dubbing wax on the thread to help this stick to it, and just wrap it around there. Build up a little head leading into that bead head we've got, and then use the whip finish knot to tie it off. On most flies, I would add glue at this point, but because of the bead head, the thread is fairly well protected, so you don't have the fish's teeth in there trying to unravel it.
that's it for this week. Be sure to check out 906outdoors.com, where you'll find the 906 Fishing Report, TV6 weather, shopping, and more. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week, right here on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.